Season 3 is live as the time of this video going out, so hop in, experience what you want in either Vanguard or Warzone and all that Season 3 has to offer. But to start things off with the new season, I want to take some time to recap a lot of information that perhaps may be lost in the sea of what all you have to do today in terms of accomplishing trying everything out in Call of Duty. Yesterday, myself and a dozen other creators sat in a Discord call with Ted Timmons and JJ Williams of Raven Software, talking about the changes you'll see live right now and what's also in the future. So today we're going to be recapping all of this with some of the big things you may not want to miss, plus also because my inability to properly plan and have this video go live as of the update actually going out, we're going to be recapping the actual patch notes as well. Now stick around here for a second video later today. We're going to be talking about the ton of weapon tuning that we ended up getting with this update, because it changes the shape of Warzone's gunplay and engagements greatly, so much to the point that it would take quite a bit of time to cover everything. So we're just going to separate those into two different videos, but make sure you stick in here for all of that. But in the meantime, as we go along, drop your thoughts below. Does anything stand out to you as particularly interesting? Is there anything that you're really looking forward to seeing a little further in the season? Whatever the case, drop it down below. But as well, if you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all things Warzone, Season 3, Modern Warfare 2 here very soon, and anything COD related. We've got you covered, so I'd love to have you in the community as we push towards that 500,000 subscriber mark. And finally, with Season 3 here, a little reminder, if you guys would like to support the channel a little further while picking up the Battle Pass or any of the in-game items, you can use creator code Espresso in the Support a Creator function. It's entirely optional, seriously, don't ever feel pressured to, but if you do, tweet me a picture. I'd love to shout out to your generous support in upcoming videos. That said, let's jump into it. First, let's start out with the obvious stuff here. The seasonal items, your rank reset, that's going to be reset back down to prestige. Whatever your last sort of milestone prestige was, it'll be reset down to 1. You'll be able to grind out the next couple of prestiges here introduced with the season. We also have a new battle pass, which again, you can pick up for either free with limited tiers. All weaponry still available though. The battle pass for 1,000 COD points that starts you at tier 100, or the bundle for 2,400 COD points or $20 that starts you at tier 20 and gives you access to every tier along the way. Cosmetic wise, there's some decent stuff here. Again, it's all subjective, but you will gain access over the course of that battle pass at tier 15 and 31, the M1916 and the Nikita AVT. Again, then bringing us to the next topic of discussion, those new weapons are now live in both Vanguard as well as Warzone here. You'll see new thematic items in the UI, new operators, new seasonal challenges, and we've kind of done this whole seasonal song and dance long enough here on the channel the last couple of years that you kind of know what all we're talking about when we take a look at the seasonal introductions for these updates. However, when we get to the Warzone side of things and gameplay specific changes, that's where we start to really go in depth more to some bigger fundamental changes. Starting with stuff that you'll notice when you first drop into the game is that, well, we now have a new skybox and some new updated points of interest, if not brand new points of interest altogether when it comes to the map at large. The new skybox here indicates a storm is on the horizon, that being indicative of Operation Monarch and the Godzilla vs. Kong event happening in a couple of weeks time here starting on May 11th. We'll see that we have that new point of interest called Dig Site, where it's going to be between mines and ruins. That's something that allows players to fight in the excavation site for some of these titans and the ancestral ties they have to the island. Peak is built out quite a bit more here. There's new supply boxes, contracts, ascenders, a fresh coat of paint on everything, and some new areas as well. Runway has new barracks, hangars, and other structural additions to add a little bit more cover and also make it a little bit more appealing to actually go and loot there. Lagoon has a new sandbar, new paths and covering, and we also have a brand new gulag. This one is going to be called Hold, in which it says it's a roughly symmetrical area based in the belly of a ship, more just off the coast of Caldera. Now, one little bit of insight that was cool here out of this information that we got from Ted Timmons and JJ Williams is that we ended up learning that this ship is actually the USS Texas. So that is something that kind of explains why we saw maybe the USS Texas multiplayer map introduced here in Vanguard, where maybe they had to just kind of build it out to scale, have assets pulled from World War II, bring it up to Vanguard's engine, since that's the shared engine with Warzone. So they kind of had to build it out before shipping it off to Raven to get ready for this. Maybe we'll still get USS Texas as a multiplayer map returning in Vanguard at some point, but an interesting little bit of trivia there. But outside of the visual and functional changes of the map overall, Warzone has quite a bit of changes fundamentally made here with this season. One of the biggest ones to me is the fact that we'll see lootable perks in supply caches from here on out. This is something that Raven did mention that will be coming to Rebirth, but at a later date. So maybe season 3.5 here, the reloaded update in a couple of weeks time. But Battle Hardened, Engineer, High Alert, Restock, Tempered, Quick Fix, Scavenger, and Point Man as a Plunder exclusive will be coming here in supply caches. These perks can be stacked with your loadouts, but you can't double up on any certain perks, kind of making them like super perks naturally. So make sure that if you find something you already have, ping those for your teammates that may not have it. But this is something that is really interesting, making that sort of super soldier a little bit more viable perhaps, and also could make regaining late game something that is a way different meta now, if you will, adding a little bit more weight to actually looting, which we'll talk about in just a second with some contract changes as well. There's some added benefit to then doing that late game in some other areas. Now, these lootable perks will not be able to be looted off a dead body. Unlike how Specialist used to be when it was first introduced in Warzone last year, these are one and done. Once you die, there's no looting them, there's no picking them up, they're just gone. Now, talking though about these perks, Ted mentioned something of a new device coming in Season 3 Reloaded. He didn't mention what this was, but he said that the engineer perk was able to hack it. So still a little bit of a question mark there with that. But outside of that, we see some new contract changes. There's a new sabotage contract where if activated, it will pick a vehicle on the map for you and your team to go destroy. And if you destroy it, you'll be rewarded with an armored truck drop. Personally, don't really like the sound of that one. Armored trucks are quite annoying to go up against. And if it's something that is a relatively easy to complete contract, well, you see where that can go. Then outside of that, the most wanted contract was changed, in which it allows for a reduction in that timer by getting kills and looting. So opening cash drops, supply crates, and things like that are going to absolutely help you out in that regard, plus getting kills if you want to play a bit more aggressive. One additional change with the most wanted contract as well is that players can no longer ping the target for a live location. The refresh rate though of this will be a little bit quicker to represent that as kind of a middle ground, so that you can't get a real-time accurate indicator of where a player will be, but you can also then still have a relatively good chance of hunting them down, but also kind of leveling the playing field for the most wanted player. The bounty contract was the only other contract here that was changed, in which, just like the most wanted contract, that refresh speed will be a little bit quicker than previously, offering up maybe a little bit more chance to track down a player that is marked as a bounty. Now, the weaponry, again, we have the M1916 and the Nikita added in here with this, but as we'll talk about a little later on down the line in today's second video, the sniper meta shift is huge here with this. There are some very big implications that you're going to want to make sure if you're a sniper, you change some of your loadouts if you're looking for those one-shot, one-kill methods. So we'll talk about that a little bit further, but just know that we have a ton of weapon tuning up on deck. But to spare you guys probably what would be another 10 minutes of talking here about weapon tuning alone, we'll break off and do that in its own separate video here shortly. As for quality of life changes, there was a lot here listed, in which the gas mask should no longer interrupt a falling player. So for those that like try and jump off a roof as the gas is overtaking you, that gas mask animation previously would prioritize over that parachute, which obviously isn't what you want to see. So a nice change here with this, absolutely. They also mentioned that while ADS and being hit with nebula rounds, you should no longer have that gas mask brought down in an animation as well, taking you out of that gunfight essentially. The buy station had quite a few things adjusted here with it. They removed the confirmation box of the buy stations, so meaning you no longer have to double tap on what you end up wanting to purchase. It just kind of cuts out that middleman a little bit, decreases the vulnerable state you're in by about like a half second or so, which is absolutely something that can be life or death in some situations. The buy station controller lag and reset should be fixed here with that, where if you ended up scrolling down, it would reset you back up to the very top if you did it quickly. Should hopefully be fixed out now. And they also fixed an issue where the buy station saw players getting stuck in it, but they're working on that a little bit more in those rare instances for Season 3.5 to entirely iron that out. They adjusted some in-game accessibility in the actual game itself. Airborne pings now should be fixed with more accuracy on the pinging at a distance. There is also a speed boost in lootable caches, which is interesting. It's an automatic activation here, so the moment you run over it, you'll get a speed boost, but interesting that they're taking that sort of, was it Clash was the game mode that ended up having that speed boost, taking elements of that and implementing it into traditional BR. Now, as for Rebirth, they ended up stating that there's going to be improvements to trade stations, specialist bonus, and the redeploy locations, and that starting pistol of the Diamatti was removed as an option as well. So you shouldn't be able to gun somebody jumping right back into the fold here with this when they're fully kitted and you just come back with a Diamatti. So that's something that is going to be removed. Definitely a nice change. I like it. And they also mentioned that overall quality of life changes here with Season 3 Reloaded. Serpentine from Vanguard, that perk that was introduced in the Battle Pass of Season 1 or 2, that's going to be coming to Warzone as well. So very curious to see how that'll shake up the sort of perk meta, if we can call it that, but we'll see in time with all of that. Now, as for playlists, as of this week, we ended up seeing Caldera Iron Trials launching here in quads, and that is a huge win to me. Iron Trials is such a great mode, I think, and raises that sort of skill ceiling a little bit, so absolutely going to be jumping in here with this one. But they also mentioned that they want to add a sense of stability with some of the existing playlists, meaning that Rebirth Solos is actually more popular than they anticipated, but it's going to be staying in that rotation permanently. They said they completely readjusted their entire playlist plans for Season 3 to make sure that it's in the rotation consistently. They did say that it could be removed in the future, but there's no immediate plans to do so. Just kind of that disclaimer that if something needs to be changed down the line, they have put it out there that they're not going to keep it entirely there 100% every single playlist update. So just bear in mind that could change, but right now for the foreseeable future, Rebirth Solos is there. Caldera Clash is coming, which is definitely nice for a lot of people, and then Reek 2 sees Rebirth Blood Money in place of Clash, and then Operation Monarch kicks off in Season 3, which is where we can transition into a lot of what they talked about is still upcoming. Now, Operation Monarch is going to be a 2-week LTM here, in which it comes along with a handful of different things that we see with normal seasonal events. Of course, we end up seeing things like those seasonal event streams, the 8 challenges with a blueprint at the end. They did mention that specifically, 8 challenges, blueprint at the end, so you have something to look forward to, which is definitely nice. But Operation Monarch as the LTM is going to be a 60-player BR match with Resurgence and Power Grab rule sets. They said you can fly the plane into a Titan so long as you have friends anchoring, which is interesting to me. Those Titans, though, will be on Caldera, Godzilla, and King Kong, and narratively speaking, they're there to destroy the Nebula 5 production. Monarch is that agency that is studying the Titans, but with this battle against the Titans in Operation Monarch, this LTM, you'll have a couple of new features here with it. There's a new feature called the Power Grab meter to the right of your UI, which is driven by what is called Monarch Intel. You receive intel by getting kills, looting crates, completing contracts, and more. Every time intel is received, you get overdrive, so faster movement, health, and armor adjustments, but they said no ammo replenishment because that straight up broke the game. Each game in this LTM will have a Titan Frenzy public event, in which there will be a malfunctioning scream device, which is produced by Monarch, which angers the Titans. Players are then meant to push the Titans back, and the top 4 squads to do so will be rewarded with loot, with the top squad receiving an actual Monarch device, that sort of thing that allows you to control a Titan and attack an area that you designate. Kind of like the Nebula 5 bomb, but on steroids. So this also will be available by getting your Power Grab meter by collecting 100 intel, getting that intel meter to 100%. So there will be multiple experiences per game where the Titans will actually attack the map itself. Kong does a ground pound move with a massive circumference and also throw a boulder at an area that you designate. It'll put players in a last stand, not completely wipe them out unless they take out your entire squad. And then Godzilla will have that heat ray, which destroys everything in its path, described as a sort of Tron bike of fire. And that fire trail will last there for a little bit, being a more deadly version of a Molotov. Now, if you fall behind, you don't loot as much, you don't get as many kills, you can end up getting things called intel drops, which is something that is kind of that cash drop style or heavy weapons munitions drop that will offer 30 intel per drop or crate. So that's a massive boost to help you out, but they'll be hotly contested. High risk, high reward. Then we'll also see vehicle drops and heavy weapon drops twice per match. By playing this, completing certain aspects and everything like that, you can end up getting 4 organic account-tied rewards, 2 charms, and 2 calling cards they ended up detailing. But that's the LTM, but it's also not the only things that will be changing in the Warzone experience at that point. We also will see that with these changes in season, we'll see the introduction of new high-value loot zones, which is kind of the additional incentive to check out new locations in the map whenever you first jump into it. Ramping up further, we've already seen started with sort of those cash drops, heavy weapon drops that are on rotation around the map every single time the match starts. There will be attack map legend and $ icons for that mini map, but each of these high value locations will change every single game, so it's not going to be something you know going into it where they will be. So these will have restock rebirth crates as well, meaning that you can end up continuously looting in these zones, and it makes for regaining after the gulag much easier to manage, no less. Plus also, you consider some of these contract changes. If you're the last alive, you end up having a most wanted contract. You can go in and cut off the time for that most wanted contract in these high value zones because there'll be a ton of crates and they'll replenish. So it's not a bad way to end up regaining here late game. So that's also going to be introduced in season. One thing that was very curious to me here is that they mentioned that throughout Operation Monarch, we'll see a couple of Easter eggs. Fun audio logs about the scientists working at Monarch. There's no real word on a reward though, like a blueprint, but they also did mention that there will be a legendary pictures Easter egg, which If you know anything about Godzilla vs. Kong, the MonsterVerse and things like that, Legendary Pictures is that production studio that manages all of that. So that's probably a reveal of some kind, whether it be a new Godzilla vs. Kong actual movie trailer or something like that, or if it's a spin-off here for that HBO series that's been rumored now for quite some time. I'm gonna guess that we're getting a reveal of some kind. But that's something that will absolutely be very interesting. And then outside of that stuff, they detailed quite a bit in regards to upcoming changes still, and some feedback that players had from our last briefing session pre-season 2. They said that audio improvements, and this is actually echoed in the patch notes, will be having substantial changes coming. Unfortunately, that ambient occlusion audio for the footsteps and everything like that seems to be pushed off until season 3 Reloaded, but they harped on having key optimization for that footstep audio by that time. So fingers crossed that actually comes. I don't like having to wait that much more again, but is what it is. That's their sort of new target date with this. The topic of aim assist was something that was brought up here in season 2's briefing, and they ended up saying they identified an issue where there was a small window where aim assist would not work and then you'd sort of be flown off target. This was actually previously mentioned and implemented in Vanguard in I think season 2.5, so that's finally coming over to Warzone now. Now the 120 hertz topic of discussion on Xbox, this was just previously mentioned and echoed again. This is an Xbox hardware issue, unfortunately, not a Raven thing. So until Microsoft actually gets things working on that end, Raven really can't do much about it. So fingers crossed that's fixed out. They did mention that they are in constant communication with Microsoft, working with them to resolve this, so hopefully sooner rather than later for my friends on Xbox. Now, as for other console issues, they ended up mentioning they still are examining things like graphical issues and reticle disappearing issues, but they said that there was a lot of different memory adjustments here with this update itself, so fingers crossed they can actually get that resolved here with this update already, or going forward a little bit further, it's an easier fix. Now, one thing that was pretty cool that was some feedback that'll be relayed to the Raven software team is the idea of color coding a satchel, which I think it was JGod that brought this up. I quite like the idea, actually, to have different colors for how many plates are in the new satchel sort of system here with this, because sometimes you'll run up to a satchel, you'll see it, and you'll be like, okay, I can finally get something out of it, but it'll have 0 plates. You'll still have 0 plates after putting on the satchel, as opposed to the 0 you had before, but at least with color coordination, you can maybe identify that a little simpler and at a faster pace, which again, in a live gameplay scenario, could be the matter of life and death. Now, the final thing we'll wrap up here with this is that they closed our sort of meeting out with this, saying that Season 4 will have the biggest changes to Caldera yet, which is pretty wild to consider that we have, I mean, obviously point of interest changes here already. We have new features coming mid-season, and we have Godzilla vs. Kong taking over the island. So how can we get much bigger than this? I'm certainly curious and very excited to see what comes of that. But for right now, that is the Season 3 update for Warzone and everything that came along with it. So that said, that's where we're going to wrap it up. I would love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. What are you guys liking out of Season 3 so far? Disliking? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone, Vanguard, anything Season 3 related, and of course, even some Modern Warfare 2 stuff here coming very, very soon. So that said, if you guys are interested, stick around here on the channel. But thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.